Chekhov, near the end, was reading the train schedules away from the spa where he was dying. And even though Ray knew that things were heavily stacked against him, he really wanted to decide what it was that he needed to do, and he wanted to finish this book of poems. That was the most important thing to him, and we really just threw ourselves into that work.
Dr. Shore pulled on his big mustache and stared at Chekhov. The writer's cheeks were sunken and gray, his complexion waxen, his breath was raspy. Dr. Shore knew the time could be reckoned in minutes. Without a word, without conferring with Olga, he went over to an alcove where there was a telephone on the wall. He read the instructions for using the device. If he activated it by holding his finger on a button and turning a handle on the side of the phone, he could reach the lower regions of the hotel, the kitchen. He picked up the receiver, held it to his ear, and did as the instructions told him. When someone finally answered, Dr. Shore ordered a bottle of the hotel's best champagne. "How many glasses?" he was asked. "3 glasses." The doctor shouted into the mouthpiece. "And hurry, do you hear?" It was one of those rare moments of inspiration that can easily enough be overlooked later on, because the action is so entirely appropriate, it seems inevitable.
Ray was, as long as I knew him, the 11 or so years that I knew him, he was aware of his mortality in this way, that he knew that this was a great time in his life, and he knew it was so exquisite he didn't want it to end. And yet, as a realist, having been through the life he had been through up to those days, he knew it would end. And he was aware of his mortality in terms of the fun stopping, of the pleasure stopping, of his great work having to cease. But he wasn't really much thinking of it in philosophical terms. Ray was not an overtly philosophical man. He was a literalist. He dealt in facts. I mean, he was quite smart. He was not one to transcend the moment. I think he thought he might miss something if he did.
He said, we really need to do something to pull ourselves out of this. He said, let's get married. And I said, that's a great idea. So let's do it. And we said, we'll go to Reno. We'll fly down to Reno, and we'll get married, and we'll go gambling. And so that's what we did. Got the tickets, and we bought the rings here. We had to send away for his. They didn't have the right size. And then we took a plane down there and spent 3 days gambling. We got married in a sort of a high, tacky way, Ray called it, in this, it's called Little Heart of Reno chapel right across from the courthouse. And in fact, somebody took a Polaroid of us after the wedding. We went gambling, and I seemed to have incredible luck. And the day we were getting ready to leave, Ray had all these flowers, and I said to him, listen, park all that and come down with me. I want you to see this. He said, I'll wait for you. I don't want to miss this bus now. He said, you've only got about 10 minutes. So I went to the wheel, and I put the money all down on number 24, and it came around, and what do you know? It was 24. And I was running across the casino and out into the sun. And I said to Ray, I said, hey, forget that bus. I said, we're taking a taxi. And he just couldn't believe it. He was so happy. It was really far too soon for him to be looking straight at his own death. But one day we were at the Sky House, and we were sitting out on the deck, and he said to me, he said, well, whatever happens now, babe, he said, we're out there in history, babe. We're out there in history. So he really had the sense that he had accomplished something, and that he had been able to see that accomplishment brought together.
You don't remember friends. You don't have in your repository of experience, at least I don't, single things which contain all of some loved one's self. I mean, I lived those days, and we had those years as friends, and nothing but doing them all over again would be the same. Nothing but having those, you know, days to come would be would be enough. So to try to single out something we did, single out something that we said, doesn't, I mean, it's fine as an anecdote, but it doesn't mean to be truthful. The truth was just all those years, all those days. That's the only truth there was.
Do you miss him?
Yeah, a lot. I don't think salmon fishing will ever be the same without Ray Carver. I don't think it'll, you know, I don't think it could be. But yeah.
I mentioned steelhead in here, and the steelhead is a trout that goes to the ocean into salt water. It's a steelhead. It's coarse. The man who took 38 steelhead out of this little river last winter, his name is Bill Zitter, last name in the directory, told me the river's changed its course dramatically. He would even say radically since he first moved here, he and his wife. It used to flow yonder where those houses are. When salmon crossed that shoal at night, they made a noise like water boiling in a cauldron, a noise like you were scrubbing something on a washboard. It could wake you up from a deep sleep. Now, there's no more salmon run. And he won't fish for steelhead this winter because Mrs. Zitter's eaten up with cancer. He's needed at home. The doctors expect she'll pass away before the new year. Right where you're living, he goes on, that used to be a motorcycle run. They'd come from all over the county to race their bikes. They'd tear up that hill and then go down the other side. But they were just having fun, young guys, not like those gangs today, those bad apples. I wished him luck, shook his hand, and went home to my house, the place they used to race motorcycles. Later, at the table in my room, looking out over the water, I give some thought to just what it is I'm doing here, what it is I'm after in this life. It doesn't seem like much in the end. I remembered what he'd said about the young men and their motorcycles. Those young men who must be old men now, Zitter's age, or else my age, old enough in either case. And for a moment I imagined the roar of the engines as they surge up this hill, the laughter and shouting as they spill, swear, get up, shake themselves off, and walk their bikes to the top, where they slap each other on the back and reach in the burlap bag for a beer. Now and then one of them gunning it for all it's worth, forcing his way to the top, and then going lickety-split down the other side, disappearing in a roar, in a cloud of dust. Right outside my window is where all this happened. We vanish soon enough eaten up.